2025 Education Consulting panel. Today is November 6th, and we're thrilled to have you with us today for a fun, fast-paced, and engaging panel with three incredible leaders at some of the world's top education consulting firms. So we've got about 4 million of you in our community. There's a lot of different reasons why you're here today. As some of you are looking for your next job, some of you are looking for your first job in education consulting. Some of you are simply industry observers, just looking to just get a glimpse of where the industry is headed. And some of you are still with University Career Services, supporting students, and so looking to get a window into where the industry is going, as well as into just like what the heck is happening in education in 2025, 2026. So whatever your reason is, we're glad that you're with us today. Thank you so much to all of you for sending in your enthusiastic questions for our panelists today. We've woven in your questions into the panel here, and so just excited to hear these folks' perspectives on your questions. So my name is Japheth Mast, Vice President of Marketing and Partnerships with Management Consulted today. Excited to have you with us. For those of you tuning in live, welcome from YouTube. I want to ask a quick favor. Take 5 seconds to hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell so that you get more great content like this direct from some of the world's top corporate and consulting employers. Wonderful. Okay. Well, I've got a couple of quick announcements here while everybody is jumping in and getting settled. And so for those of you looking to break into the management consulting industry, two quick things for you. Number one is we've got a consulting project. It's called Strategy Sprint. It is happening in February 2026, and it is a fantastic opportunity for you to build real-world consulting experience and skills, not only for your resume, but just for your recruiting process. And it's a 1-week process happening in February. It's virtual. It's a great way to get your feet wet, test drive the consulting experience, see if it's right for you before committing to the rigorous recruiting process, and just build some really core consulting skills like Excel modeling, pyramid principle, executive communication, and much more. Scan the QR code here for more information and to join today. Next up, for those of you, you're recruiting right now, or you're about to, within the next 4 weeks to 6 months, we've got two different programs. I'll voice over them quickly: Black Belt and Super Prep. So Black Belt is kind of a great starter pack. It provides you with 8 to 10 hours of coaching with an expert coach right on your networking stories, your fit interview prep, and your case interviews. We'll also edit your resume and your cover letter for you, help you put your best foot forward in that process. Our November cohort kicks off next Wednesday. We've got 9 seats left. Scan the QR code here for more information and to join today. Next up is Super Prep. It's Black Belt, but just Black Belt blown up. More coaching hours, end-to-end advisory throughout your whole recruiting process. So if you come in without business background or with any kind of relevant experience, then this tends to be a great fit for you. It also includes a seat to the Strategy Sprint project. Lastly, for those of you you're already in industry, you're already in consulting, looking to take the next step in your career, we've got one-on-one and group corporate communication or executive communication training for you to help you increase your influence inside your place of work, to increase your presentation abilities, to advance and move up. And so scan the QR code here for more information on that. You'll also find a link there to book a 15-minute call with a member of our team if you've got specific questions about which of these programs is right for you. Amazing. Okay. Well, I think we've got quorum here, so I'm excited to dig into the agenda for today's panel. Wonderful. So we're going to dive in with an intro question. You're going to hear a great response from each of these panelists in response to the opening question. Then we'll dive into some moderated cured questions that we've put together based on what you've submitted. And then we're going to take some of your direct questions, here towards the end, and we'll end with a great closing question. So that's kind of the order of show for today. Please take notes, right? Do what you have to do to get what you need out of this. It's going to be a great session. Lastly, just really excited to introduce today's firms. We've got three great leaders, great firms represented. We've got Miriam Elbaz from Grant Thornton Stacks. Excited to have you with us, Miriam. We've got Mark Finlan from Huron. Huron has done great work in the education consulting space for many, many years, and so we're excited to have Mark here today with us. And last but certainly not least, we've got LEK Consulting and with Laura Brookhiser, a managing director there at the firm. And we've included links to connect not only with Miriam, Mark, and Laura, but also with the firms themselves, right? Give them a follow on LinkedIn, get connected to their email list, their resource list, just get connected to them. And so this QR code is your best friend today. Scan that and get connected to these great firms. Okay, wonderful. Well, I'm going to take a breath. I think you're probably tired of hearing me talk, and so I'm going to introduce our moderator today, our expert moderator today. I'm here with Ish, who is a member of the Management Consulted facilitation team. Ish, would love to turn it over to you for a quick introduction, and then I'm going to just let you take the reins and dive into the content.
Awesome. Great to see an amazing group of people here. I'm Ish. I'm one of the coaches with Management Consulted, ex-BCG consultant. During my time at BCG, I did a lot of work in education, public sector, social impact consulting, and have to be leading this amazing panel today. So maybe if we can start off with, we have three amazing panelists. If we can go around and if you can please introduce yourself, tell us about your firm, your typical kind of client base engagement, and maybe share a bit about like what do you find most rewarding about working in educational consulting. Along with that, we have a good member base through Management Consulted who are international candidates. So if you can share a bit about whether your firm is open to hiring international candidates or not. So maybe let's see who we can pass off to first. Anyone who wants to start.
Happy to. Why not? All right. Hi, everyone. Laura Brookhiser. I'm a managing director at LEK Consulting based out of our Boston office and one of the leaders of our education practice. For a bit of personal history and then a broader introduction to LEK, I originally joined LEK as an associate right out of undergrad, worked there for 5 years or so. When I went to business school, decided I also wanted to explore the education sector, so did a joint MBA, Master's in Education, and then worked at the Gates Foundation and the Bridgespan Group advising and informing nonprofit and philanthropic strategy in the education space, and came back to LEK about 5 years ago to support our education work here in the US. So for a brief intro into LEK overall, we're a global strategy consulting firm. We have about 22 offices and 2,500 employees across the globe, with the US being our largest geo. And then as we think about our work, we divide that up across sectors. And so healthcare, TMT, consumer industrials, and I'm here today to represent our education sector. As we think about the education sector and the work we do, that spans everything from early childhood through to K-12, higher ed, and professional training. And we advise really three types of clients within that space. One being education institutions themselves, two being service or software providers that sell into the education end market, and the third being investors in the education space. So what does that mean for the typical type of work we do and what a project might look like? On average, a project at LEK, regardless of sector, is going to be between 4 and 8 weeks typically. There's sort of two flavors maybe that I'll tee up for you. If we're doing something that is M&A related, that's usually going to be in the 3 to 5 week time frame, and really focused on framing the market that a particular company plays in and the attractiveness of that company's position within the market. If we're doing a piece of growth strategy work for an education institution themselves or a company that sells into the education end market, that would typically be 6 to 8 weeks in length, but can vary dramatically depending on the specifics of the engagement, and is really can be core sort of where to play, how to win type of foundational strategy, or can extend into more detailed activating strategies around pricing strategy, digital strategy, portfolio optimization, et cetera. So a lot of variety in the work that we do, but I think across that we pride ourselves on being really data-driven, strategy-focused, and senior leader-led. So I get to still get my hands dirty and dig into all the work that we do. To the last piece around our international hiring, we do sponsor international students at the consultant level and above, but not for associate hires right out of college. So great to meet you all.
Thank you, Laura. We'll go to Mark next. Oh, Mark, I think you are muted.
How's that, Ish?
Perfect. Go ahead.
Thanks. I'm Mark Finland. I'm the head of the education practice at Huron Consulting Group. We're a global consulting firm, about $1.6 billion. And our two primary sectors are healthcare and higher education. That makes up about 80% of what we do, and the rest constitutes a little bit broader public sector and the commercial industries that we service. I think one of the things that makes us special as you think about this specific panel we're doing is we do have a dedicated higher education practice that I oversee. It's about 35% of what we do is focused specifically in the higher education sector. So when I say higher education sector, we are working with colleges, universities, and academic medical centers for nearly all of that work that I'm talking about. It's almost easier to talk about what we don't do than what we do because we really work with universities across all of the challenges they have. If you think about all the leaders at a institution that we would support, we have solutions to support them in all their challenges, whether that's strategic or the implementation operational part of helping them achieve their goals. So if we're working with a president or a provost, that could be anything from strategic planning to academic portfolio optimization or revenue diversification. If we're working with a head of HR or finance, it would be about the efficiency of the institution and how they can run it more effectively. If it's with a head of IT, it could be AI strategy or digital transformation. And you also can just imagine the things that are very specific to the industry: enrollment strategy, financial aid optimization. We have an athletics practice. There's lots of different issues that are challenging for institutions right now of managing their athletics practice, fundraising and advancement. We have a very large research practice focused specifically on the research mission. So across all of these, it could be strategy projects, very similar to what Laura was describing. Your typical kind of 4, 6, 8, 12, 16-week type projects, but then also we often are hired for 3-year implementation projects if someone's doing a large-scale institution-wide digital transformation. So it really is a range of projects that you would see us working on. A little bit more about me personally. I am a career consultant. I've been doing consulting now for over 25 years. I just very serendipitously happened to stumble into higher education consulting during the great financial crisis. I just happened to get on a project at one of my alma maters, the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, and honestly just fell in love with the opportunity to work in this sector and have an impact to a mission that's just so important and critical to life and mobility for so many people. So that's why I do it. I really love doing the work, and to work at a firm that has such a focus on the sector is really a privilege. In terms of the international hiring, we are a global firm, so we do have global offices that we hire into, but it is much more rare and not common that we're hiring and sponsoring people into North America internationally now.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mark. We'll now go to last but not least, Miriam.
Hey everybody, Miriam Elbaz. I'm a managing director at Grant Thornton Stacks. Great to have you all on today and to chat with you a little bit. I came over to Grant Thornton Stacks relatively recently, so I'll give you a little bit of my personal history. I spent nearly a decade at EY Parthenon in the education practice, where I split my time between private equity focused work and higher education strategy focused work, and then had an awesome opportunity to come over to Grant Thornton Stacks, where a longtime mentor of mine and myself are basically have recently formed our education and public sector vertical, which has been a phenomenal and unique experience. So Grant Thornton Stacks, formerly known as Stacks, recently acquired by Grant Thornton, a titan in accounting and audit and you name it, an advisory, is a private equity focused shop, really all things in the private equity ecosystem. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what we do in the education and public sector vertical because it's a little bit different. Oh, you guys just all went away for me. I'm only seeing Mark. Can you guys still hear and see me? Oh, it just fixed. Okay, great. So as Laura mentioned about LEK, we're similarly verticalized. We have industrials, we have healthcare, we have consumer. We now have education and public sector. We have tech. And we really laser focus on the private equity ecosystem as a whole. So what that means is we're doing a lot of work for private equity investors, whether it's on the buy side, helping them evaluate companies that they want to invest in, or on the sell side, preparing a company for sale and doing market studies to tell that story about the company and the market as it's going to market. And then we do a lot of value creation work with portfolio companies. So if I had to give you a split, it's about 50% buy side with investors, 30% sell side, and remaining 20% value creation and growth strategy with portfolio companies. Our mix in the education and public sector vertical is a little bit, it skews a little bit differently. I'd say we're doing a bit more on the growth strategy and value creation side as of late, and then a pretty even mix between buy and sell side work with investors. But again, actually quite similar to what Laura said, we cover really the full range of the education ecosystem. And then I'll tell you a little bit about public sector, but I won't focus there since it's not the focus of today. But whether it's a company or an investor looking at early childhood education, K-12, higher ed, professional learning and training, really we call it the cradle to career continuum. And then on public sector, we look at companies that sell into and investors that focus on local and municipal government, state government, and federal government. And so you can really think about the wide range of product and service providers, software and technology companies, you name it, that exist in the education ecosystem. And of course, similarly in the public sector ecosystem. And that's where we focus. What I love about working at Grant Thornton Stacks is sort of the opportunity to see both sides of the table. I'm able to help investors, laser focused on the education ecosystem, think about where can I place capital to drive the most growth and impact and innovation, but similarly work with operators at education companies and occasionally still at institutions of higher education and occasionally also other educational institutions, how they can bring their strategies and their vision and their mission to life. And I find it really rewarding. Oh, international
Awesome.
student
Thank
question.
you, everyone.
I'll just really quickly. We are open to international students. There's a specific process, and it is a high level yes, but we can learn more with us, and we can share more.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for that wonderful introduction. I'd love to dive into some details right now. So maybe we can start off a bit with Mark first, and then Laura for this part. So, can you maybe share one project where your firm has maybe helped an education client modernize their digital or ed tech systems, and what impact has that had on broadly on students or institutions?
Sure, I'm happy to. This is a large part of what we do, whether it's an ERP system, which obviously focuses more on the back office, a student information system, customer resource management, which really could focus on the enrollment experience or the fundraising. We actually have our own Huron Research Suite, which is our own proprietary software we've built that helps institutions manage research administration at their institutions as well. The one I wanted to share in the student information space is really a special one. You can find a case study about it on our website. It's with Gallaudet University. So Gallaudet University is a university in Washington, D.C. that's specifically focused on helping the deaf and hearing impaired. So you can imagine doing a student information system transformation there. It's always about more than just technology, but in that case, helping support the student experience was very special and unique because of the unique student body, the staff, faculty, and executive team they have there. Actually, the majority of their faculty, staff, and executive team are also deaf and hearing impaired, as well as a large percentage of their student population. So creating a system and environment where, whether it's the admissions process, the financial aid process, choosing your curriculum and classes, applying for health insurance, housing, meal plans, all of those processes, which are linked directly into the student information system, we wanted to create an experience that felt accessible to that population. And also, just from a very interesting and rewarding perspective from the team, all of our meetings and interactions with their team had to be moderated by someone who could be a translator. So someone who understood ASL or American Sign Language. All of our meetings had to have an interpreter for us to work with the team, and really heighten our sense of awareness as to how important that student experience was, especially when it's remote through a system for people who are deaf or hearing impaired. I think one other thing that was very special about that experience, the impact we had with them, is we do have a program on our team called our Social Alliance team, where in special circumstances we're able to offer reduced consulting projects to institutions that meet certain criteria, and Gallaudet did meet that criteria. So the chance for us to be able to bring the expertise, which we often are bringing to the top research institutions, and be able to bring that expertise to Gallaudet in that really special environment and circumstance where we helped them change, modernize, and transform the experience for their students was super rewarding.
Thank you, Mark. Let's hear it from Laura.
Awesome. Happy to share an example from LK's lens. So as we think about technology and digital solutions, all of that is in service of your ultimate organizational or corporate strategy. And an example that I will highlight is when we worked with a professional training organization last year. And interestingly enough, while LEK has always been focused on strategy, we felt that we wanted to make sure we were helping bring that to life in a digital way more fully. And so several years ago, we acquired a digital agency that's now our in-house agency. So we can support a client from thinking about, who's the student or customer that I want to serve? What's the experience I need to provide to them? But then we have digital product managers and technologists that can help actually bring that digital experience to life. So with this particular training organization, they were focused on professionals in the financial services industry, and they had largely been kind of B2B driven historically, and they were trying to support early career professionals and those trying to advance in their career in more of a B2C context. And so they were competing against a lot of digitally native players and felt that their offering wasn't as compelling in that context. So in this work, we really started with what might have been more of a kind of quote unquote typical LEK project, where we were assessing the market, their positioning within it relative to the competition, what those students and early career professionals were actually looking for in a training provider, what made someone choose to pursue that through as a student or a professional themselves versus through their company, and really sort of setting the lay of the land of the market in which they were competing. But what was really great was we could now not only think about that overarching strategy of how they fit into this broader training ecosystem and what their value proposition was, but we worked with the in-house agency to conduct really deep research of actually following individual students along their journey from discovering a training platform, how they engaged with it over the course of actually completing the training, understanding all of those friction points along the journey, such that we could revamp their digital presence from their marketing channels that they used, through to their website and interface by which you actually signed up to the training, through to their LMS system that was essentially facilitating, the training for students over the course of completing that program. And so it was really sort of soup to nuts in terms of what do we stand for, what are we offering to the student, and then how are we, visually bringing this to life in a digital product.
Thank you both. This next question is going to be a bit around education consulting, guiding institutions through change. Maybe this question can go to Miriam and then Mark. Can you perhaps share an specific example of a strategic shift that you supported for an institution, and what made that experience, let's say, rewarding for you?
Sure, I
We'll
can
start
kick
off
us
with
off.
Miriam.
Sure, yeah, I can kick us off, and I'll let Mark do a higher education example. I'll give you guys two quick education company examples from the recent year that I looked at. I'm going to keep the descriptions high level and vague, but recently we did some work with a provider of professional development solutions to the K-12 market. This is a recognized brand with strong customer satisfaction and a couple of very high quality market aligned offerings, but they were experiencing stalled growth. And we got under the hood with them and worked with them to diagnose what was going on through a comprehensive commercial assessment. And one of the key things we learned was that they were a little bit over reliant on inbound demand and legacy customer targeting, and not spending enough time essentially thinking about what is my ideal customer profile today, what do they care about, and how can I best reach them, and what's the messaging that's going to resonate most. So through almost a month of work with them, we worked on revamping go-to-market considerations and takeaways that they could consider to reignite sales in this portion of their business. And it was quite rewarding to just help this company get what was an extremely high quality and market aligned product into the hands of an additional set of districts that kind of connect those dots. Additionally, recently I worked with a provider of core curriculum to the K-12 market, focused on math and science, that was thinking about market entry. Essentially, how can I broaden my product portfolio and start to think about supplemental offerings? And that was a really interesting kind of, again, targeted about a month-long product expansion thesis validation study with wraparound go-to-market takeaways. And again, it was very rewarding because we were able to help them identify where the market, what is the market opportunity, where is it strongest, and start to think about how they could go to market in a way that would be resonant and drive sales for them, but also get a high impact, innovative product into the hands of educators and in front of students. So that's just a little bit of a flavor of some of the type of work that we do with education companies in the space.
Fantastic. Mark.
Sure, I'm happy to. And Miriam read the room here that I was going to do a higher education example. She was spot on. Especially this year in 2025, the problems that our institutions are facing are increasingly complex, multifaceted, and intertwined. I often get asked what's the favorite project I've ever worked on. I have a little bit of a cheat code on this one because I've worked with both of my alma maters. I got to work with William and Mary, where I've went to undergrad, and the University of North Carolina, where I got my MBA. And it's hard to beat getting the opportunity to go back and work with your alma mater. But in any given year, we work with over 500 institutions of higher education. We've worked with all of the top 100 research institutions. And to some extent, this question was hard to narrow down because I feel like all the projects we're having are so impactful. So I'm going to take a little bit of a different tact, because sometimes I think people don't think about the business of consulting when they think about questions like this. And I'm actually going to mention two new practice areas we've spun up over the last 3 years in response to the growing demand and needs of our clients, and how that fits into the conversations we've been having with them, and how we needed to round out some of our offerings to really help them with their challenges. The first is in the athletic space. And obviously you hear a lot about name, image, and likeness, conference realignment, the financial pressures institutions are facing on their athletics enterprises, the compliance pressures they're facing. We really felt like there was a gap in the market. And so many of those questions we were getting asked around the athletic athletics enterprise fit into the broader challenges we were helping institutions with around their overarching strategy, where they should focus scarce resources, how they should grow, how they were going to handle broader financial pressures. So being able to build a practice that could help institutions with these different challenges, seeding it with unbelievable market experts like Kevin White, who was the athletic director at Duke, or Sandy Barber, she was the athletic director at Penn State and Berkeley before that. Having those type of people join our team and be out in the market helping clients with that challenge and see us build something really from scratch has been super rewarding. Very related to that is our push into the advancement and fundraising space. We were doing work on the digital side and CRM implementation, but we really didn't have the strategic advisory capabilities to support our clients. And fundraising has become such an increasing lever for how institutions engage with their alumni and constituents and fund strategic priorities. Anything from financial aid to just about any priority you can imagine. So when we're sitting in the room doing strategic planning with our clients and helping them figure out how to translate that into pillars that they could fundraise against, going out and doing some strategic acquisitions in the market of the leading fundraising consulting firm, GG&A, of two other small tuck-ins underneath that to round out those capabilities. We now have the most comprehensive set of offerings around fundraising in the market and can support not just higher education, but broader arts and culture organizations, healthcare organizations with their Grateful Patient program. So that's actually been a really fun part of this job. And the fact that we do focus on higher education, if you look at a number of other consulting firms, their higher education practice is tucked into a broader public sector practice. That's not the case here. It is a standalone practice that we focus on, make these kind of investments, and are able to build out new solutions that are responsive to the challenges our clients are facing in the market.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mark. This next question is going to be around admissions. So, what is one way that you've seen institutions reimagine admissions or learner pathways this year in 2025? And maybe an example of how your firm has helped shape that strategy. And for this, we'll start with Laura first, and then we'll go to Mark. Or actually, we'll go to Laura, and then we'll go to Miriam.
Wonderful. So as I was thinking about this, I took a little bit of a step back and wanted to think about sort of the increasing linkage between education, higher education, and the workforce. And so whether that is thinking about ensuring that programs and degrees that students are receiving are actually well aligned to position them to get better jobs and advance in their careers, or whether thinking about how as a higher education institution you're competing against a emerging range of sort of alternative credentials that students can go pursue in order to prepare themselves for the workforce, and how do you kind of compete in that context. So two things that came to mind when I was thinking about this question. One was a project with a institution of higher education that was focused on teachers and advanced degrees for teachers. And essentially it was a way for them to continue to sort of progress in their career and earn increasing salary and sort of move up in their roles. Now, this institution, I think, had historically leveraged sort of relationships with districts and things like that as both a way to recruit students and also a way to ensure that students were ultimately placed into positive positions on the back end. Now, we're increasingly seeing this extend to other degree programs and other areas of higher education, whether that's in nursing, other allied health professions, or technical skills, really thinking about how you leverage those employer partnerships, not only from a sort of career services outplacement perspective, but how you leverage that in terms of thinking about the students that you're bringing into your ecosystem, particularly when you're serving in an advanced degree context. The other example that came to mind was thinking about an online university that we helped that had a college of business, but certainly in this instance, they were competing predominantly for students that were already in careers, were thinking about how they could pursue these classes, not in a full-time capacity, but in a part-time capacity. And so we really helped them think through how to expand their view of what that learner pathway looks like from pure, degree programs that you need to complete in a certain period of time and follow a sequential learning pathway, to thinking about stackable credentials that they could bring more students in and help them sort of build towards that ultimate goal in their student life cycle and professional life cycle, but in a way that was really tailored to them. Gave them credit for the skills that they might have built on the job or in other educational experiences previously, and allowed them to sort of come in and out, but continue building that portfolio of expertise in a way that was more flexible to where they were in their careers and their particular needs.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Laura. Miriam, glad to hear from you.
Sure. So I'm going to take a little bit of a private equity lens to this, but there are several trends we're seeing right now in the higher education admissions office specifically that is shaping demand for a variety of education products, technology, services. I'll give you a flavor for two that we've been discussing and seeing activity around in particular. One is there is a shrinking traditional college-aged population in the U.S. right now. And if you look at overall post-secondary enrollment kind of across ages, it's a flatter picture into 2030. And what this environment of kind of enrollment pressure is doing, I should also mention, complicating that, is headwinds on international student enrollment because of the current administration's kind of posture and policies toward immigration and student visas. So all of this is coming together to create enrollment pressure in higher education and intensifying competition for students. And so what that's creating in kind of the private equity world is interest in technology and services that help with student acquisition, enrollment management, marketing, and student success to basically capitalize on this pain point and serve institutions with these solutions that can help them maximize their attraction and retention of students and stabilize such a critical piece of the financial sustainability equation. So we've been having a lot of conversations with both companies in that space and private equity investors who are interested in that market activity, given that trend. Another thing we're seeing kind of admissions related is, especially among the top 100 schools, we're seeing a gradual reinstatement of standardized test requirements coming back as we move away from the pandemic era. And what's interesting beyond that, beyond just reinstating these testing requirements, whether testing, like even in places where testing requirements are already in place, we're seeing a renewed emphasis and weight on test scores in the candidate evaluation process, which is actually, at least in part, driven by widespread AI usage and grade inflation in the K-12 context, which is making it harder for transcripts and college essays and the like to be reliable predictors of student success and academic achievement. And what's interesting about that is it's creating demand and interest in companies and services that help students prepare for standardized tests, get tutoring so they can stand out in what is becoming an increasingly competitive process to get into some of these elite higher education institutions. So those are just a flavor for two kind of admissions office related trends I've been focused on recently and been having conversations about with investors and companies in the relevant pockets there.
Thank you so much for the great perspective, Miriam. It's really helpful to hear Stax's kind of view on this admissions question. All right, moving to a little bit of a recruiting kind of question. We know that a lot of folks listening, watching, are interested in like breaking into the field of education consulting, and so they're asking us all the time, like, "Hey, how do I stand out?" So let's do round robin, and Mark with Huron, we'll start with you, and then we'll go Laura and Miriam. What's one quality that you've seen in a candidate that just really impressed you, really made them stand out to you? Mark, I think you might be muted here.
Oh, sorry, there we go. I think the context of which one of our companies you're talking about and the types of project you're working on is probably going to give a little bit of a different answer here. The table stakes is management consulting is hard. So you have to have the requisite skill set and work ethic to be successful in consulting. One of the things I look for is a genuine interest in the sector. People who actually are coming in and genuinely want to and are interested in this sector is a big indicator of success here, partially because you're coming and joining a team of 1,400 to 1,500 people that are here because they genuinely care about making an impact in the education sector. So it can't just be as simple as I liked being in college, so therefore I like higher education. Were you involved in a research project on campus and that made you excited about the research enterprise and how you could have an impact on such an important engine and driver of economic growth for us in this country? Did you have an internal role at the university, or were you in student government that gave you interest in learning more about the operations, having how an institution works, and how you could impact their trajectory? So I think looking for those things where you had an experience that stands out for why you care about getting involved and having an impact in the sector, honestly, is one of the things that we look for. And you have to have all those other factors that, of course, point to you being able to be successful in consulting. But for us, a lot of it is just that passion for the sector. If you want to maximize your income, you're going to go do something else. You're not going to get it in nonprofit consulting. You can get paid very well at our firm. It's a professional services firm, so obviously we pay well, but you don't get into nonprofit or education consulting because your goal is to 100% maximize your income. Your goal here is you can make a very good living, and it's very rewarding, the impact we get to have in such an exciting sector, and frankly, working with the most prestigious institutions in the country and many of the most prestigious institutions in the world.
Love that. Thanks, Mark. Laura, love to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, maybe to your point, Mark, we are often hiring for generalists versus people who would necessarily be exclusively dedicated to the education practice to start, though that can come within 6 months' time of joining LEK. But I think when I'm reflecting on my recruiting experiences, one of the things that sticks out to me is oftentimes you see people come into, I think, particularly in a case interview context, where it's very clear that they've studied a set of frameworks that they're going to apply to any case, regardless of what that case is or the specific context of it. And it feels like they're really focused on the right answer versus actually grappling with the problem and trying to have a conversation and explore that together. And as we think about who we're hiring, a lot of this learning happens on the job. So it isn't that you need to have all the answers to start, but it's that you have a curiosity about the problem. You have an ownership and a drive to get to the right answer, and that you want to, collaborate with a bunch of other smart, hardworking people in order to get there. And so I think that engagement with the question at hand and that true back and forth conversation where you kind of learn and evolve your thinking over the course of even the interview is what stands out versus the exact application of a framework that came out of a textbook.
Love that. We're not looking for robots who can memorize frameworks. Miriam, what's one quality you've seen in a candidate that really impressed you?
Sure. So I would just say first, just to follow up on that, we hire for generalists, and we do not. That doesn't mean you have to be a generalist forever, but you do. One of the key parts of our value prop is that you're going to see a lot of different project types within the private equity ecosystem, and you're going to see a lot of different sectors in your first couple months to years. If you have any kind of relevant experience or a really strong demonstrated interest, you can spend more of your time in one of the verticals or the other. But a huge portion of the experience, and I think the value, is in trying different project types and trying different verticals. But one thing that really stands out to me, Laura covered a lot of this, structured problem solving that is not tied to a framework, but is also really organized and walks you through, whether it's in a case interview context or whether you're reflecting on an experience that you had in a college group or a college program or a college project. Something that shows that you're a linear thinker and that you can deconstruct a problem into its component parts creatively and without applying the same framework. And since I basically stole Laura's, I'll give a second one. And it's client empathy. And I know in the college context, you like the concept of the client may not be one-to-one. But what has really impressed me in conversations is when folks, whether it's about their team or someone that they were supporting in an internship role, demonstrate a lot of empathy and understanding for what that stakeholder is going through and needs. And then as a result of that, tailored their approach, their messaging, their output to that need. Because that idea of empathy, and in our context, client empathy, is so important to nuancing and refining our deliverables and ensuring they're impactful. So I look for that level of thinking and high touch approach.
I think one clarification I would add is if you did apply onto our digital team, where you were on our Workday team and you're implementing Workday, or our Oracle team, or our Salesforce team. In that case, there is a likelihood that you would get exposed to multiple industries, where you might be on a healthcare implementation, then you might be on a higher education implementation. If you hire directly into the practice, the consulting team's kind of more similar to what were just being described, then you would be a generalist, but you would be a generalist in the higher education industry. So you'd be on lots of different project types, but higher education clients exclusively. So there is a nuance there depending upon what type of consulting work you're doing. Is it digital implementation, or is it management or strategy consulting?
I think you're on.
Thank you. Mark, that's a great clarification. I think consulting can be a black box at times, where it's hard to know where you fit, where to generalize, when not to generalize, like what's the difference and all of that. So I appreciate the extra color there. Cool. All right, well, we're going to move to the next section of audience submitted questions. So taking direct questions that listeners, viewers have sent in. And these are going to be a little bit of like a kind of a free-for-all. So we'll have just one or two panelists chiming in on these. So without further ado, let's dive into question number 1. And that question is, is your firm advising clients on balancing AI adoption with academic integrity and faculty concerns? So the floor is open for anyone to pitch in.
You mentioned this is going to be a spicy panel. That's a spicy topic. I would not say that is the lion's share of the day-to-day work we're doing, is specifically in that area of AI. Now, interestingly, we happen to have a risk and compliance team where we do help on things related to research compliance and just broader risk factors at universities. We have gotten more involved in helping universities as part of their broader enterprise risk management programs, thinking about the risk that is being created with AI in some of these areas. I think one of the things to remember is it's still very new, and we're still very much on the early part of the adoption curve, particularly in a sector like higher education that tends to trail behind the private sector. I think where you're seeing more of the work we're doing with institutions around AI right now is advisory work on how to leverage AI. They already have AI on campus coming through a lot of their enterprise systems, through whether they're a Google or a Microsoft campus. They have those tools on people's desktops, just advising them how to leverage what they have. Where do they have holes they need to plug? We're building some of those use cases and capabilities ourselves for holes we can help them plug in the market. But that question was a very nuanced, very specific one, and not one you're going to see outside of very niche, potentially even law firms or risk and compliance firms, people touching that with a 10-foot pole right now.
Love that. Anyone else? How are you approaching kind of AI adoption with academic integrity and faculty concerns?
Maybe the tweak on that question that I could speak to is thinking about the role that AI is playing in your sort of fundamental value proposition as a business or organization in this space, and how you are either effectively leveraging that to improve your offering, or potentially at some sort of competitive risk or threat because others are utilizing AI in a different context. So as we think about, this is probably less true of your kind of flagship state university or your, Harvards of the world, but as you think about the broader ecosystem of both education institutions and education tools, understanding how AI is impacting the students that they are training and teaching, whether that is the skill set that they have coming in, the jobs they're trying to get coming out of any piece of education, or the skills that they need to develop in order to be effective in those roles. So how it's impacting kind of what that learner journey looks like, and then how you're thinking about your individual offering against that student's need set. And so whether that is AI actually in the efficacy of your product or in the efficiency of your operations behind it. But I think we've seen, beyond education in a lot of industries, AI is a hot topic and people are sort of running around trying to put money behind it, but it isn't always in a thoughtful or effective manner. And so really thinking about sort of evaluating your kind of end-to-end offering and operations and identifying where AI can have a meaningful and material impact and actually drive sort of outsized competitive advantage versus where it is sort of a nice to have or something that you could spend a bunch of time thinking about what to do, but it's not actually going to make what you are offering to your customer or student or teacher more compelling.
Love that. Thanks, Laura. We'll do one more audience question before we're moving to the closing question. So we'll have just one person chime in on this one. And this one's about what backgrounds that you all are looking for. Do you prefer hiring somebody with more of a generalist background and skill set versus those with like specific, like let's say education or higher education industry experience?
My guess is our answer is going to be pretty similar here. There is no specific background for what makes a good consultant. I've had some of my favorite consultants I've ever worked for me had English majors all the way to engineering majors. So I think it was talked about before. It's really more about the critical thinking, the intellectual curiosity, and I think you can get that from all sorts of different majors and backgrounds. And I think, frankly, I'm guessing I would speak on behalf of all of us that having a variety of people with different degrees and backgrounds actually makes for building a better consulting team.
Boom. Love it, Mark. Okay, thank you so much. Well, hey, we're going to transition to the final closing question. So I'd love for everybody to take a minute to answer this and just kind of leave folks with the final piece of advice. The question is this: what's one kind of last piece of advice that you would offer to someone aspiring to break into education consulting in 2025? And so for this one, let's go Laura, Miriam, and then Mark. So what's your final piece of advice for someone aspiring to break into the industry this year? Laura, over to you.
I think, to the point that made previously, think about what is actually driving you to get into the space and what element of that is what's going to energize you to get up and go do hard work each day. And I think that will hopefully help you chart your path in terms of what type of specific role or space within the broader consulting or education consulting ecosystem might be the best fit for you.
I would say make sure that this is the path that interests you, right? Like make sure that you've really weighed what is it that I want to get out of a consulting role. Make sure you understand as we've all talked about today, every firm is different. Every firm has a different value proposition and your day-to-day is going to look different. The one unifying theme is it's going to be really hard work, and you're going to have to approach it with intellectual curiosity, and flexibility and adaptability every day, and every day is going to look different. And I probably sound like a broken record saying that, because I'm sure if you've spent time thinking about going into consulting, you've heard that a million times. There's no similar day and everything looks different. But my advice would be to make sure that that you feel compelled toward it, and that'll make it rewarding when you're in the role.
I think one thing I would add, both great answers. As you listened to Laura and Miriam answer questions earlier, they just very seamlessly and effortlessly talked about all the different dynamics that are happening in the industry as part of how they're answering questions. You should be able to do that in an interview. Like, you should be intellectually curious. You should be reading the Chronicle of Higher Education. You should be reading the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, whatever it is. And when you're in the interview, I was chuckling when Laura was joking about people coming in and knowing a specific case framework, but they don't actually know how to have a conversation about a case. You should be able to have an interesting conversation about what's going on in the education industry. And that means doing your homework. And that doesn't mean just doing your homework the 24 hours before the interview. It means showing a genuine interest in understanding what is the regulatory uncertainty. Do you actually understand what's happening to the research enterprise right now because of less dollars toward grants? Like, what's happening to the NIH versus the USAID? What's happening to indirect cost recovery rates in the industry for research right now, and what is the impact that's having on institutions, and how do firms like the firms you see here, how do we go in and help clients actually grapple with all of those different interconnected challenges they're facing? If you show up and not only do what Laura said and actually be able to have a interesting conversation about a problem, but you can do it understanding some of the dynamics of the industry, that's going to make you stand out.
Good people doing good work for good people. Love that. Be interesting, be curious, and you'll do all right. Well, thank you so much, Miriam, Laura, Mark, for joining us today, sharing your perspectives. Really, really appreciate you taking the time here, and we'll send some people your way. Appreciate you. I'll leave this screen up here for just 1 second longer so that folks can get connected to the good work that you were doing. But appreciate your time, and we will see you around. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.